Alright guys, welcome to today's video where we're going to be talking about how to raise up to $1.2 million in funding in 9 months or less without wasting budget on the software development. And the case study that I wanted to share with you is for the startup, Buffalo-based startup called Transparency Registry. They raised $1.2 million in 9 months without an MVP. And this is a blockchain-based fintech startup. And the issue that they ran into originally is that they raised a little bit of the seed funding. They hired some key team members. They've done the market validation, market research, and started building the MVP product. And they ran out of funding. So they needed to raise money fast and present the idea to the investors to get them excited and sell them an idea. But since the product was so complex and it was taking forever to build, they had nothing, they didn't have an MVP or any developed product to show. So that's where we came to the rescue and created an interactive design prototype for them that emulated the functionality of their platform. So, Transparency Registry used that prototype to present to the investors, and investors were impressed by seeing the quality of the design, because typically people come to them with a stick figure drawing on a napkin, and in this case they were able to actually interact with the platform through the design prototype, better understand the idea, and within 9 months Transparency Registry were able to secure $1.2 million in funding. And so what challenges we help to solve here is we help the Transparency Registry to visualize complex data for the import processes. So the challenge with the debt collection industry is that the processes are not standardized. The company using multiple files and documents to gather the data, import it, aggregate it, share it. So it all comes with different file formatting. So we help to standardize that import process, streamline and simplify confusing user flows, and also we're able to demonstrate the product idea in a simple and cohesive way that so anyone, regardless whether they're expert in the field or not, they were able to understand the idea and see how the platform works. And here I have an example of the design prototype that Transparency Registry actually used for to present to the investors. So as you can see here, we have clickable areas of the platform that users can go through and get an idea of how platform works, different processes of importing files, importing data, mapping fields in the file, in the system to the fields in the file that's being imported, to make sure everything stays linked consistently, and validate that idea, catch the errors, review the batch import, and make sure that information that they have has been imported correctly. So, and here's the screenshot of the Crunchbase profile for Transparency Registry with the amount that they raised September 1st, 2019. Chris, the CEO and the co-founder of the company, was really impressed and was very happy with the result that we were able to deliver in such a short period of time. And so as we look more into the UX UI design, we start finding interesting data. So based on the data from Nielsen Norman Group, which is a leading firm in the world on UX UI design research, so based on the data, the companies on average get 135% ROI when they invest in the quality design. So, and if you don't invest in the UX UI, right, you might be leaving a ton of money on the table. And what Nielsen Norman Group suggests is that the companies invest about 10% of their project budget in the UX UI design in order to increase KPIs. And KPIs stand for key performance indicators. So, and those can vary based on type of the company, company goals and objectives and the market. So, but typically the KPIs that founders in the companies focusing on are customer conversion rate, time spent on the platform, monthly recurring revenue, MRR, user retention rate, and others. So here we have the screenshot from Nielsen Norman Group report that, so they conducted a study on how UX UI design impacts 95 different metrics during the redesign process. So as you can see on this chart, out of 95 metrics that they measured, only 3 metrics showed 0 improvements. And the rest of the metrics, almost half of the metrics that were measured, delivered at least 50% or more improvement. And if you're interested in reading more, here's a link where you can go and take a closer look at the report. And there was another fun experiment conducted by Jeff Tien, the director of product design at Facebook in 2006. So what Jeff done, he created what's so-called the UX fund, and he invested $50,000 worth of stocks in the publicly traded companies that heavily invested in the user experience. And they tracked that fund for 10 years. And they tracked how those stocks performed comparing to NASDAQ. And what they discovered that during those 10 years that included a major financial crisis in the middle of it, those stocks at the end of the 10 years period outperformed NASDAQ fund by almost 4 times. So the return on the UX fund stocks averaged 450.1%, where NASDAQ stocks increased 93.2% on average. So this is a substantial difference, and it gives you an idea how design can affect the outcomes of your product and of your company. So to me, this looks like a no-brainer result. So here's the screenshot from the those different companies that Jeff picked, and you can see Apple, Google, JetBlue, Netflix, Nike among those companies that were outperforming, and the only one that didn't perform well was BlackBerry. So, and yet still it generated impressive 450% ROI. So another interesting report that that I found was recently released by PitchBook. So it's a 2020 report that was released earlier this year, and that's showing that product ideas that invest so another interesting finding was provided by PitchBook 2020 report that came out earlier this year on latest investing trends. And it showed very interesting data. So it showed that despite the recent economic downturn, the venture firms, VCs, continue investing into the startups and taking remote meetings instead of personal meetings. And the main shift that they reported was that VCs valued executive team pedigree less compared to the previous year. Instead, VCs focused on the company's business model, the path to profitability, meaning that more than ever, startups need to do their homework, do the market research, validate the idea, validate the customers, and invest in the product R&D. And currently, the average size of the seed round in the US is about $1 million. And here's the screenshot from that report showing how trends are changing in terms of what's important to the VCs when they look to invest into the startup So here we see that the business model and path to profitability and disruption potential growing, whether executive team pedigree shrunk by 50%. So what it tells us is that you still can go out and raise money, but more than ever, putting in the homework and doing all that preliminary work, getting pre-sales is extremely important, and it's more important than having the all-star team, which is still matters, but not all of us have people on the team that went to Harvard or are serial entrepreneurs and building successful startups in Silicon Valley year over year. So who is this idea and presentation for? So if you're a fintech startup founder who's looking to raise a seed round and finally you take a breath and get a good night's sleep after all the hard work that you put into your company. This is for folks that already done their homework, put in some elbow grease, done the market research, tested the waters, know what's working, what's not working, and looking to take the idea to the next level. This is also if you suspect that there is a better way of testing your product market fit without wasting tens of thousands of dollars on development costs, and if you have that idea, then you're in the right place. And also this is if you're feeling frustrated that you might have wasted tens of thousands of dollars on the pre-MVP. You build it, you might have hired a team that built it for you, and but you still cannot get traction with your product, and customers don't want to pay you money, VCs don't want to invest in you. So if you're struggling with this, then this presentation is for you. Stick around. Also, this is for those people that hate burning money, getting empty promises instead of results, people that don't want to waste expensive engineering resources. Stick around. This presentation is for you. Also, if you're serious about your product idea and want to do it right from the beginning, then you're in the right place. And also, if you value getting measurable results and improve your product ROI over time, then you're in the right place. And who this is not for. So this is not for those people that are looking for the magic bullet, quick and dirty solution that will help them to make millions overnight. I have bad news for you. Our approach, our methodology still requires a lot of work. So if you're looking for something quick and simple, then you might as well exit the browser tab now. Also, this is not for super skeptics. It's okay to be skeptical when you evaluate a new product or project approach and do your due diligence, but sometimes founders get burned so badly that now they start overanalyzing every little thing, and it becomes counterproductive working together just because the founder becomes the own main obstacle in the way. So if you feel like you're the type person, unfortunately, this is not for you. So if you're those type of people, click on the X button. We'll see you later. So what is our core concept? The truth is you can raise $1 million seed round in 9 months or less without investing time and money into developing an MVP. And most entrepreneurs are not aware of this option because the market is flooded with information. It's hard to figure out the approach that offers the right balance between quality and cost. A lot of times founders rush to get the product out of the door, to build it, right? Ship the MVP, because that was the mentality for many, many years. But they're not aware how this approach, the old way of doing things, how it can impact their outcome and the future of their company. And Forcoda is the only firm in the US dedicated to solving this particular problem for entrepreneurs in the fintech niche. To tell you a little bit about myself and Forcoda, my name is Lena Levine. I'm the founder and CEO of Forcoda. I'm originally from Russia. I moved to the United States in 2009 after I graduated university with a master's in computer science degree. Even before I was able to receive my diploma, I hopped on a plane and flew to the US to pursue my American dream. And I got here with $300 in my pocket and a big entrepreneurial spirit with a vision of building a bigger and better life for myself here in the US. And over the years, I started working as a web developer. For a while I was a freelancer, and then over time my freelancing career started growing and I started getting more work from the local and national clients and growing my business, hiring more people and expanding my team. And I worked on local and national level projects. So I'm myself and the company were headquartered in Buffalo. So I worked with the clients in Buffalo, worked with Fortune 500 companies and learned best practices from such brands like Shake Shack, Oral-B, New York City-based agencies. And also while being in business for the last 6 years, I came across hundreds of founders and startups that were looking to build a digital product, bring the idea into the reality, but they got burned by either not knowing the best practices of how to approach building a startup, or they might got burned by developers and designers, some shady companies that took their money, did not deliver on the promises, or delivered the product that wasn't resonating with their target audience and was just a waste of money. So the founders had to go and rebuild it again and again and again. And over the last 6 years in business, I was talking to those founders, and I helped the companies and the founders to build better products that not only resonated with their target audience, but also helped them to raise funding for the investors. And the founders that we helped saw increase in their main key performance indicators, and were able to grow the business, and our company and our business grew together with them. And I'm also was recognized by the local technology community organizations. I've got a Women in Technology Award, Best Community Contribution Award, as I've been involved with the Buffalo tech community for the last 8-9 years. We got the Best Web Design nomination, Women in Technology nomination. I got featured in local news publications, and I was also a speaker at TEDx Youth in Buffalo a few years ago. And over the years, we worked with hundreds of clients, big or small, some Fortune 500 companies like MET Bank, startups like Transparency Registry, Kick Further, universities, startups in different spaces, nonprofits, etc., etc., etc. And so what I want to talk about today is the blueprint method that we uncovered after all the years of being in business. And the method is for raising funding, how to raise 1.2 million in funding in less than 9 months without building an MVP. And when you look at the old way of doing things, of how startup founders approach their projects, is typically they identify the problem, they do customer research, define the problem a little bit better, and then they move to the next step of designing an app or application. And after they design it, they go and develop it, they implement it, then they get the customer feedback, then they start sell it, right? They start to get some market traction, then they go pitch the investors, and only after that they raise $1 million or less or more of the seed funding. So, and the new way of how we approach things based on our experience is that once the founder identified the problem and idea, the next step is to do customer research, define the problem even further, and based on that information, create an interactive prototype. And as the next step, once the prototype is created, it's crucial to go and get customer feedback. And based on the customer feedback, you can either confirm or refute your assumptions. But what's important, depending on the feedback that we get from the customers, we go and we iterate the prototype. And after that, you go and get sales with the interactive prototype. You use it to pitch to investors and raise your seed round. You raise your $1 million seed round at the end, and then you can use those money to build an actual MVP. So let's take a look at each step individually and go over how it works exactly. So as a step one, do market research to validate the idea and get the problem solution right. So the old way of doing things and the mistakes that the founders make, and I would say it's number one mistake that the founders make, is that they build the product based only on their own assumptions or market knowledge, right? So what happens, the founders fall in love with the idea so much that they either afraid of going out and getting the feedback from the customers, they might afraid that somebody will steal the idea, or they so sure that they know exactly the problem that they're solving and how it should be solved that they don't get out of the building, right, the virtual building, and don't get any feedback from the target audience. So, and what happens as a result, it was very difficult to get the right product market fit. And without being very specific, without investing time and resources in that market research, it was tough to find the right problem to solve. And the new way of how we do things, or the new way to approach it, is to go heavy on research from the beginning, and do the research using the sound principles of UX UI design, the best usability practices, and flood your brain with customer data without writing a single line of the code. And once you have that customer feedback, customer data, combine that customer data with your own knowledge to find the right solution to the problem. So we want to identify the right problem to solve and also the right solution that helps your customers. And also identify who those customers are first and foremost. Get really specific who those people are. And the goal here is outline your customer persona and be so specific that you can take out that person out for coffee or on a date. So if it's somebody like women between the age of 20 and 35 in the United States, that doesn't sound like one person at all. But if it's an SEO of the company that's been in business for 5 years and has 10 employees that's struggling with a specific challenge, then absolutely, that sounds like an individual that you can talk and meet in real life. So, and the outcome of investing into the market and user research ahead of time is that you've been able to clearly understand the target audience needs and expectations. And based on that information, you can create a design that resonates with customers and leads you to higher sales down the road. And also, you as a founder spending less time or investing less money into the development resources, and reducing the number of changes after the product launch or during the development step. And also more sales down the road because your product will resonate with your target audience. And here I have an example of the user personas that that are being outlined during this step of the project, of the process. And so the conclusion here is that more upfront research leads to better quality MVPs that resonate with the target audience and generate more sales down the road. And if you clearly understand your audience needs and expectations, then you can create design that resonates with customers and leads you to higher sales. So you ask me here, how specific do you need to get with questions when doing the market research? Specific enough to identify the burning pain points of the people that you're talking with, and questions specific enough so you can verify that your SaaS product solves this problem for the users better, faster, cheaper than your competitors or the old method that they're using, right? They might be shuffling papers manually, but now you're offering them a digital solution that can help to expedite the process, reduce the costs, etc., etc. And how many people do you need to interview? So don't waste months of doing the user interviews, it's enough to interview 5 to 10 people and identify the patterns. So once you start seeing the patterns in different challenges that people start bringing up, then that means you're on the right track. And typically you start seeing that after 3 to 5 people. But 5 to 10 people is a good sample because if you schedule interviews, some people might drop off. So it's important to listen to the keywords and the phrases that people drop in during the interviews and see if you can pick up on people repeating the same pain point or the challenge over and over again. And so how do you prioritize the findings once you conducted the interviews? It's really, you want to identify the improvements that will have the most impact on the outcome for the customer. And how long should this phase take? Depending on how fast you can line up the interviews, you should aim for about a couple of weeks. And it can be longer if you sell into the enterprise clients or don't have a network available. So it might take longer, but typically a couple of weeks should be enough to line up and conduct those interviews. And would this work in the enterprise market? The answer is yes. It will work if you're selling into the enterprise, small businesses, B2B, B2C. Everyone who's working and on the new idea can go through this process. Again, based on the type of the company you sell into, the process might take longer if you sell into the enterprise compared to the small businesses or the startups. And you might ask me, why do I have to do the market research or customer discovery? I already know all the answers. Well, this is one of the top mistakes that founders make, assuming that your past experience is relevant to the new company that you're building, or is that your customers, your target audience, are going through the same pain points, they're experiencing the problem in the same way, or envisioning a solution in the same way. So if you already know the answers, or you already have certain assumptions, customer discovery is still a great opportunity to either confirm the assumptions that you have. So in this case, the discovery process will go much faster, or you might uncover something that you haven't thought about before. So even if you think you already know and understand what the problem is, don't skip the step. As the next step, once you uncovered all that market and customer information, the next step is to design an interactive UX/UI prototype. And previously, how the startup founders are approaching this step, they might learn how to do it themselves, pick up a few tutorials online on how to use Photoshop or Sketch or Figma, and try to learn how to design something themselves, learn how to design tools, or learn the best design principles. They might hire a freelancer or outsource it through the websites like Upwork or Fiverr to a designer overseas. And the outcome of this approach would be the poor quality of the finished design mockup, low customer buy-in rate. Freelancers typically are not invested in your product idea, and they will only design in a way what you tell them to design, right? And also dealing with customer cultural differences when you're working with a remote team can also negatively affect your the final design prototype, because the design team does not understand the market expectations. They don't understand the user. So again, they design it based on their own assumptions. You have your own assumptions. So in the end, you come up with a product that has that is completely disconnected from your target audience. And you might get a design that still looks good, but has a poor user experience and does not resonate with the target audience. And it also can take a long time, because with if you're dealing with a team in a different time zone, it can take a lot of time to go through the back and forth through the design revisions. You also, as a founder, can take a while to figure out how to what should be in a design prototype, right? How does your application should look like? So if you haven't done before, there is still a learning curve of you understanding what needs to be included in that application prototype. So this process can take months if you trying to do it the old way. And the new way, or how we approach this step, is the new way is to have a professional team with a domain expertise in your industry that's invested in your company's success, design an interactive UX UI prototype for you. And the outcome of this approach is that you get a higher quality of MVP prototype design. The design that resonates with your target audience, that is faster, and by using the design prototype, it's much faster and cheaper to make changes based on your customer feedback compared to once you have your product in the development phase. So as you go through your product development process, the further in the process you go, the longer and more expensive it takes to make any edits to your prototype. So if you're in idea phase, right, you can just change it on the fly. When you're in the design phase, you can change it in your prototype. When you're in the development phase, now you have to go and rewrite the code. So something that in the design phase can take a few hours or maybe days, in the development can take days or weeks to rebuild it. And also you can use an interactive design prototype for pre-sales before your MVP is ready. And here's an example of the landing page prototype that we created for another fintech startup called Kickfilter. And as you can see in the design prototype, you can actually click on the different sections of the page, and it will it will actually perform the action, simulating the actual functionality on the website. So it's just enough to test user assumptions, get the actionable feedback from the customers. And again, to reiterate, the message here is investing in the quality UX UI design upfront can get the company on average 135% ROI per each metric. And because if you clearly understand your target audience needs and expectations, you can create a design that resonates with customers and leads you to higher sales. And you will spend less time on development since more changes can be done during the design step. And again, here's a great example of this rule, the UX fund given us 450% ROI from those companies that invested in the UX UI design when building their product. So you might ask me here, how many features do I need to include in the prototype? Typically, I would suggest identify top 3 to 5 features that solve the most pressing customer problems. And the features that are custom or have a lot of unique steps. So if it's something just like a simple login registration functionality, unless it has a lot of steps, if you have multiple steps during the registration process, you might want to skip them on this step just because it's a standard industry functionality, and you don't need to waste time and resources trying to figure out how it works. But if it's a feature that's unique to your solution or has several steps that users need to go through, you want to make sure that you include it into your prototype. And how long this process typically takes? It can take about 2-3 weeks to design an interactive prototype and start getting customer feedback really fast. So once you have your design prototype ready, the next step is getting customer feedback before you build. And again, previously, the mistake that we see the companies and the founders make is explaining the idea to the users without any visuals, or using software like PowerPoint that is not designed to present any interactive prototypes to the customers, which is waiting for the MVP to be ready to present the solution to the customer and solicit the feedback for the first time after months of being in the production. So all that caused a lot of pains and problems for the founders down the road. First of all, the process was frustrating. Imagine showing or being excited about finishing your product finally after 3-6 months being in the development phase, or maybe a year, showing it to the customers finally for the first time, only to realize that your customers are totally disappointed. They don't know how to use your system. It's complicated. It's not solving their problem, and you have to go back to the drawing board and just throw all that effort out of the window. So it's extremely frustrating. It's also very dangerous because you might run out of the runway. Somebody might beat you to the market first, one of your competitors. You also will get a lower user buy-in rate because if you're presenting your idea without showing any visuals, whatever you imagine in your head and what your users are imagining in their head might be two completely different ideas and solutions. So, and not everybody can visualize what you're talking about, especially if you have a complex idea that you're trying to present. So it's really challenging or almost impossible to get actionable feedback from your target audience without showing them what the product looks like. You might get some very vague words like, yeah, this is a cool idea, oh yeah, I'll buy it when it's ready, but there is no way to validate your idea without showing the visuals to the customers. And it also, like I already mentioned, if you wait till the last minute to show your product to the customers, once it's already built, it's going to cost you a lot of money and take much longer to change something once it's already has been developed compared to the design step. And yeah, on average, your expenses multiply by 5-10 times when you're trying to fix something in the software. And the new way of do it, the new and better way, is to create interactive design prototype to demonstrate to the users your product idea and get clear feedback about what features they like, don't like, or might be missing from your MVP. And again, go heavy on research using sound principles, best design practices, and flood your brain with customer data without writing a line of code. And based on the user feedback, based on the information you receive, combine the data with your own knowledge and improve the design prototype to make sure that you have the best solution possible. And the outcome of this step is you getting a clear, actionable feedback from your customers, getting higher buy-in rate from your market, and actually from those users that you've been interviewing, because they, down the road, you're not only interviewing them or getting their feedback on the product, but you're actually selling them on the idea of using your product because you solving their challenge right in front of them. So the further in the process you go, the better they can see your solution, the higher buy-in rate will be. And you can also, by doing those user interviews, you can start generating leads early in the product development process and use that interactive prototype to start getting pre-sales. And here's an example that we have of what the interactive prototype might look like. So it's behind the scenes is just a bunch of different design screens connected between each other, imitating the functionality of the actual platform, right? So have an ability to click something on the screen and select it just in the same way as you would do on the real website. So that's the idea behind the interactive prototype, to simulate that process for the customers without building a software. So what we want to take out of this step, the idea is that clear visuals can help your target audience better understand the solution and provide actionable feedback. And implementation of the UX/UI design best practices leads to better quality MVP that resonates with your target audience, and you also spend less development time or waste less development time down the road. All right, so now that we talked about user testing and the design prototypes, you're asking me, how do I conduct the UX design testing session? So the best way to do it is to schedule a session through video call software like Zoom, GoToMeeting or Skype, whatever your software of the choice is, as long as you can do the screen share, or the person that you're interviewing can do the screen share. So you want to share a link with them, the link of your prototype, and this should be the first time they've seen it. And before you start the session, give them a little bit background on your solution or your application without giving out too many details, or without explaining how it works or what they need to do exactly. Instead of that, provide them with a few scenarios. For example, if you building a solution that allows customers to find a product that they're looking for online, maybe it's a new e-commerce platform. So provide them with a background, a little bit of the background story, set the scene. For example, you're looking to purchase a product online, and then your friend recommended you to use this website or the web platform that we created. So you come to our website and you trying to purchase a pair of sneakers. So, and from there, the most important thing that you need to do is just shut up and let the person navigate through your prototype. I know it's very tempting to just point them and say, oh, click here or do this, but let the person figure it out themselves. And it might take them a few seconds, but the most important goal for you here is to identify where they get stuck, or they might be looking for the certain button in the wrong spot, right? Something to give you an idea that, hey, this is not working as intended. I should improve it or find a solution for this challenge, right? And after hosting several of these sessions, you will see the pattern where people get stuck, frustrated, or something doesn't work as intended. And also another suggestion here is to ask user to talk out loud, to explain their thinking and the process of navigating through your system, so you can also identify what might not resonate with them correctly as they trying to use your platform. So, and yeah, then just kick back, enjoy, and hopefully your users are not struggling in the agony trying to figure out how your platform works. So, but if they do, then you know what to improve, and you can do it fast because you're still in the design phase. And here's an example of the project that we've done for a startup called Immersed Games. So they are a startup that helps kids to learn about science and research by playing computer game. And teachers had this dashboard that is supposed to provide them with a ton of data about kids' progress, different class progress, different educational standards that teachers had to comply with throughout the course. And the original dashboard page looked like this on the left. And no one ever went there because it was intimidating, it was not clear, it was just like a disaster. And Immersed Games approached us to help redesign this portion of their dashboard and make it, help them to structure information in a way that was easy to find and easy to digest. So as a result, users, the final outcome of the redesign was a dashboard that was easy to navigate, and whether users were really into digging deep into data or they just wanted to get some overview of the progress, they had an ability to get as much or as little data about their student progress as they wanted to. So you, again, might be wondering how many user testing sessions do you need to conduct? Recommended number is 3 to 5 sessions. You don't need to do more than that, just because after 3 interviews, you will start seeing the patterns. And for example, if your login process is broken or it's not working correctly, there is no reason to go and conduct 10 interview sessions if the first step is not working. You already could have figured out that this portion of the design is not working correctly after the first interview. What happens if you get poor feedback from customers? Well, it happens, but that means that this step is working as intended, because you're getting the feedback from your customers that you can now go back and fix. And there might be, the underlying problem here might be is that your problem and solution are not well defined. So you might want to go back to the drawing board and see how you can improve this portion of your application. Sometimes you'll find out that you just need to scratch the idea and start from the beginning, this outcome is still better than the alternative scenario. You invest in tens of thousands of dollars, months of your and your team time into the development of the project, only to find out the same outcome 12 months later instead of 2-3 weeks. So if you give me each of those options, I would choose the least of the evils. So after we receive the feedback from our customers, we want to go back to the design prototype and implement the feedback in the design. And again, how it's been done before, or the mistake that the founders make is that they start implementing those changes after MVP has been fully developed. And it caused lower quality of MVP, the first version of the MVP being built. It took more money, more time to fix issues in the MVP. And your expenses have multiplied by 5-10 times, and meaning less money in your bank account, and also reduce the runway of your startup. So instead, what you can do, you can get the customer feedback before the development phase by using an interactive prototype to demonstrate to the users your product idea and get the clear, actionable feedback, and identify things that might be missing from your MVP. Then implement that customer feedback during the design phase, and continue refining the prototype after each demo customer sales call, because you might get some feedback as well down the road as you pitch this idea during your sales presentations. And this results in higher quality of finished MVP, MVP that resonates with target audience. You reduce your costs and time to market by 5-10 times, and it takes less time to make changes to the product functionality. And also, you'll get happier customers and investors. And here's an example of the screenshot from the Figma design tool that we use in our project, showing an example of applying or changing styles on the fly, or having a list of global styles that you can implement and change throughout the design with a click of the button. So the conclusion here is that you don't need to wait for the MVP to be ready to refine the product functionality. Making changes to the product features during the design phase will be 5-10 times cheaper and faster. The further you move in the project timeline, the more expensive it becomes to change something. And with the design prototype, you can make edits to your product after each sales or customer research call. So how do you know when you found the product market fit? The answer is when your customers want to give you their money. So that's the best way to know if you nailed the problem right into its head, if customers want to give you money to purchase your product. And how do you reach out to the audience for the feedback? Well, there are a few ways to do it. You can reach out to people in your network ask for your friends or people that you know for introductions. If your target audience is outside of your network, you can try doing cold outreach, try messaging people on LinkedIn. So all of those methods are equally acceptable. And the next step is, the step 5 of the process is sell before you build. So what happened in the past is that the founders waited for the MVP to be built to start selling the product to the customers. And the old result was less cash in the bank, the faster burn of the runway. If you build the product but the customers are still not willing to pay for your product, you would have to go back to the drawing board, and all the time that you invested into the development of your solution has been lost, if not wasted. And if you wait too long to start selling, your competitors might beat you to it and be the number one on the market. And also, if your product or service has a long sales cycle, you can lose valuable time, and the startup can run out of cash. So with very important thing to remember, and one of the reasons why a lot of startups fail, because they run out of money. So alternative way of doing it is to start pre-selling in 2-3 weeks by using interactive UX UI design prototype. And the outcome of this step is having more cash in the bank, longer runway, established customer base. By the time the product goes live, the customers are excited to start using your product, more sales. Also, this allows you to avoid unnecessary team complexity, and getting paying customers within first few months instead of 6 to 12 months, getting traction, and also happy investors down the line. Because as we go back to the beginning of the conversation with the PitchBook report, this is what the investors want to see, right? They want to see the validated idea, they want to see the product market fit, they want to see traction, whether it's pre-sales, letters of intent. So this step allows you to get all of that lined up. So you can start selling before your MVP is ready. By using interactive UX UI prototype, you can start pre-selling sooner, in 2-3 weeks as opposed to 3-4 months, and have more cash in the bank, longer runway, establish a customer base before the product is live, get more sales, avoid team complexity, and further validate your idea and get customer feedback before your product is completed. So why is it important to get pre-sales and talk pricing with your customers? Because you don't want to waste 6 to 12 months and hundreds of thousands of dollars building an MVP only to find out that market cannot bear the price of your product. You need to learn that as soon as possible if the market is willing to pay for the solution, and if not, go back to the drawing board. And sometimes you might even abandon the idea if you find out that your product or idea is not profitable. And once you hit the nerve, with your customers, with the users, people want to throw their credit cards at you. So this is how you know that your idea, you found that perfect product market fit. And you will ask me, what if you're not a trained salesperson? Will it affect the results? Yes, without the sales skills, the outcomes of your sales calls will be worse than if you were a trained salesperson. But if your product is the best thing since the sliced bread, then your customers still would want to buy from you, because your product will solve their pain points. But you might run into the challenge of undercharging. So you want to focus your time and energy learning how to sell, so you can start validating the pricing and the sales cycle as soon as possible as well. All right, so now that we have our design prototype ready and polished up, the next step is to pitch the investors and raise the seed round. And the previous way of doing things, the startup founders would demo the product using a poorly built application that might have been full of bugs or been crashing during the most important part of the presentation, the founders praying that the demo of the app loads and doesn't break, which resulted in extra stress. During the presentation, founders worrying that this might affect their pitch performance or how they look in front of the investors. This potentially could create first bad impression with the investors and also making it seem that your product is not well thought out. So the new way to approach it is by using interactive design prototype to add a wow factor to your investor speech. So the outcome of this is investors can navigate the well-designed, intuitive user interface. It creates a better impression, adds more confidence in your approach to the business. They understand that this is a design prototype, it's not fully functional, and yet it looks great, it looks professional, and it's easy for the investors to understand your idea. And also the investors know exactly where their money will be going, which will be for development of the platform. They see that you already have done your homework, you validated your market, your customers, you got the pre-sales, you have a professional design, and now the next step is to build and implement the product and start selling like crazy. So it removes extra uncertainty for the investors, and you get a higher chance of closing a bigger round much faster. So you can use a high-quality UX/UI design prototype instead of half-baked application during the investor pitch, and present your digital product idea using a high-quality design prototype, which leaves a long-lasting impression, positive impression, which is most importantly on your investors. You can communicate your idea with more clarity and get stronger footing with the pre-sales numbers before you start doing your fundraising, and continue scaling up after your MVP is built. So how much money can you raise? Well, virtually there is no limit how much you can raise using the design prototype. You should raise as much money as you need to reach profitability, so that you'll never have to raise money again, or you need to raise as much money to get to the next fundable milestone, which is usually can be 12 to 18 months down the road. And what do you need to have before you pitch the investors? You need to have your product market fit figured out. You need to have your product prototype. You need to show that the product is experiencing actual growth. Getting pre-sales, showing that the customers really need your product and it solves actual need in the market. And investors will back you if they have the confidence that this is a successful product and that you will use money wisely to build up the company and scale it to the next level. So we covered a lot. Let's quickly summarize the steps of the process. Step 1, proper customer and market research. Step 2, we want to design an interactive UX/UI prototype based on the customer data that we received from the market research step. Then step 3, we want to get customer feedback on application design. Make sure it's an actionable feedback, something that we can implement during the next step, which is apply feedback and make edits to the prototype. So once that step is complete, we want to go out and start pre-selling like crazy to validate the idea even further. And as the next step, go out and pitch the investors. And by following these 6 steps, you can get to 1.2 million in funding in 9 months or less without investing in the development of the application. So there are a few ways how you can get this outcome. Step 1, you can design the interactive prototype yourself. It can take about 5 to 6 months to educate yourself properly, understand the best design principles, learn how to design an application, learn how to use the design tools. But the outcome of this step is that the quality of the design probably will be low. And also this will result in a low customer buy-in rate. So you can also struggle with implementing proper market research and UX/UI design best practices if you haven't done this before. Is an option too. You can hire a freelancer, but freelancers are not invested in your product or providing critical feedback. Usually freelancers just go and implement the instructions that you provide them with. And again, the final outcome will be only as good as your vision for this product. Freelancers also do not understand your market. And the finished design might have usability flaws or miss essential features or won't resonate with your target market, especially if the customer research step has not been done correctly. As an option 3, you can hire an outsourced company. The final result could be of the poor quality due to lack of the communication, different time zone, language barriers, and cultural differences. You still will have to spend a ton of time managing the team, and it might get frustrating very, very quickly. You might also run into the risk of getting the design that doesn't resonate with your target audience due to the cultural differences and language barriers of your design team. And it can be extremely tough managing remote teams, especially if they located in a different time zone, especially if it's a 10 to 11 hour difference, and when it's your night, it's their day. So it's really difficult to get a good chunk of time where both of you are online so you can figure things out together. Or the option 4 is working with Forcoda and get an interactive design prototype designed professionally in 2 to 3 weeks by the team that understands your target market and invested in your success for 1/10 of the effort. And again, this is for SEOs and the founders in the fintech space who are looking to raise the seed round but are struggling with designing a product that resonates with the target audience and getting pre-sales and commitment from the customers. A few case studies to go over is Transparency Registry. So yeah, they're the company that we looked at in the beginning of the presentation. They raised $1.2 million in 9 months without an MVP, and their company in the blockchain-based fintech space, which is building a very complex product, and they ran into the challenges of almost running out of funding, but we came to the rescue, and by using our design prototype, they were able to raise 1.2 million in seed funding and hire more people to their development team. So here's an example of one of the pages of their dashboard that we designed for them. And here's a screenshot of the funding that they raised. Another success story was for Immersed Games. We helped them turn the poorly designed dashboard into the #1 selling feature. They're the startup in the edtech space. And the problem that they dealt with is that the dashboard was poorly designed or not designed at all. It was just half-baked by the developer on the team. It was frustrating for the users. They haven't used that section of the website at all just because they didn't know how. It was super confusing. And the teachers could not find the information that was important for the students' success. And that portion of the dashboard was just taking up the space in the web application. So after we redesigned the dashboard, Immersed Games even before that feature was implemented in production, they used the designs to present this new feature to the teachers during their sales calls. And teachers were pumped to learn about all that value add that they will get by using the platform, and it helped to accelerate the sales cycle for the startup. And here's an example of what the dashboard looked like before the redesign and what it looked like after we worked on this project with them. We created a separate sections, or split the dashboard into sections where teachers could easily find the information based on different metrics and a hierarchy of data, whether it's based on per different class, based per different educational standard, performance expectations. They also were able to see some actionable insights and suggestions if they wanted to quickly get an idea what needs to be improved in their student class progress. And Lindsay, the founder and the CEO of the Immersed Games, wrote us a nice big testimonial outlining the work that we've done for them. So, alright, so here's what's going to happen when you work with us. You will be able to validate your product idea faster and start selling in 2-3 weeks instead of 3 to 6 months. You can even raise up to $1.2 million in 9 months or less if you execute properly and follow the steps of our blueprint method. You can finally stop wasting time and spinning wheels by dumping money into the mediocre solutions that generate next to nothing results. You can forget about anyone who doubted you and prove they were wrong. You will feel like you can finally sleep at night and focus on the most important thing, which is growing your startup and acquiring new customers. And this is what's going to be included in our service. So previously, when you wanted to do the customer research, you would have to slap together a PowerPoint or very rough mock-up or the wireframes and start reaching out to friends or family or people into your network trying to get feedback on your idea. But now if you engage us on a project, we can handle the customer research from start to finish, and we can help you identify proper user persona profiles, reach out to prospective users, conduct interviews, and organize project objectives and features based on the importance of the information that we uncovered, and help to prioritize that information in a few weeks instead of several months. And here we have example of the customer persona profiles that we deliver to our customers on the project. So the next, before, when you wanted to design an app prototype, you would have to either learn how to do it yourself, hire a freelancer or an outsourced team overseas. But now by working with us, you can have high quality interactive prototypes in 2 to 3 weeks without wasting time and stressing out about learning a new skill or managing a designer or a team of designers, dealing with the cultural differences, language barrier, time zone differences, and stressing out about the outcome of your project. And here's an example that we have on the screen is the how intricate the structure of the design prototypes that we deliver to our customers to make sure that they fully imitate the functionality of the finished product, so that way you can use those prototypes to demonstrate the functionality of your app to your potential customers, investors, or anyone who's interested to learn more about your product. So next, we will also provide you with a style guide with all UI elements in their different states, including default and active states, colors, fonts, that your development team then can use as a reference during the development process to keep consistent UI look and accelerate your development time and reduce the number of design bugs in the application, and overall saving you time and money during the development process. And here's an example of one of the design style guides that we provided for our client. We will also deliver final files in Figma application that allows developers to copy elements, CSS styles, properties with one click, which will help to accelerate the development time, will reduce errors, and again, will help to keep your app consistent and looking sharp. And here on the screen, you see an example of the UI of Figma that allows developers just like easily copy that piece of the code into their code editing software. So that's one of the things that we love about Figma, is that it helps to bridge that gap between designers and developers, and make sure that both teams, both your design and development team, can be on the same page throughout the process. And here on the screen you see an example of how easy it is to change the style of the elements across the whole application with just a few clicks of the button. Again, saving you time and money during the development phase of the project. So the next thing that you will get is, so previously, before, when you wanted to start selling, you would have to design and build an MVP, spend 12 to 24 months on it, right? Planning, doing research, designing, and developing it. But now, by using an interactive UX/UI prototype, you can start making pre-sales in just 2-3 weeks once that interactive prototype is ready, and you don't need to waste time and money on the development before you sell the product to the customers, right? So our goal is always to be selling first, validating the idea, and then building out the actual MVP once you have those first paying customers and your product market fit validated. So, and then previously when you wanted to pitch the investors, you would have to build an MVP, start getting traction, get a few sales, and the whole process could take you between 12 to 24 months. But now you can use an interactive UX UI design prototype to start validating your market, getting traction, and making pre-sales without wasting months and tens of thousands of dollars on building an MVP. You want to raise money when you have figured out a product market fit and got the traction, and that's what the UX UI prototype can help you to achieve without investing in the MVP. And as Jeff Ralston, the president of Y Incubator, says, to raise the money, you need to impress the investors. And for that, you need to validate your product idea and get the traction. And for those of you that can raise the money without all that upfront work, is great. But for those of you, or for the most of you, you do need to put that work upfront and do your homework before you go and meet the investors. So, to summarize, previously, when you wanted to build an MVP from scratch, do the market research, do the design, develop it, launch it, it would cost you up to $145,000 in labor cost, opportunity cost, time, your own time, and your development time and design time. But now, by working with us, it will cost you only a fraction of the cost to get the same results and raise the seed round of funding for the investors. So let's take a look at the value that we jam-packed into this offer. Alrighty, so previously when you wanted to raise the seed round, whether you were building the app yourself or hiring a contractor or outsourced team, it can cost you up to $145,000. So let's take a look at the breakdown. You would have to do the customer research that can cost you about $5,000. You would need to design an app that can cost up to $30,000. Then you would need to invest money to develop an app, which is always the most expensive step of the process, which can be up to $100,000 depending on how complex your digital solution or the app is. And then you would need to spend time and money collecting that customer feedback and again implementing it into your solution that can be that can cost around $10,000. But that amount does not even compare to the value that you might that you would get out of it if you start selling and raise seed funding. So let's say if your monthly recurring revenue is about $5,000, so if you can start selling by 6 to 9 months sooner, that can translate into $45,000 extra in your bank account. And of course, if you go and raise the seed funding, that can be valued up to $1.2 million. So, and you can get that same value by working with us for the fraction of the cost. So let's summarize what you will get by working with Forcoda. We'll outline proper customer persona profiles and we'll do market research, which is valued at $5,000. We'll create high-fidelity interactive design prototype, which is valued at $30,000. We'll get actionable feedback from your prospective customers and help you to organize and prioritize those insights, which is valued at $10,000. You also would be able to start selling sooner by 6 to 9 months, which is valued at $45,000. And of course, you would be able to go and raise venture capital that can be valued up to $1.2 million. So you can get all of that for the fraction of the cost if you schedule time to connect with us today by going to this link, calendly.com/Forcoda/discovery call, and set the time for the discovery call. We also, something to keep in mind, we're only accepting 3 customers per month because we want to make sure that we give a proper attention to all of our customers. And for that, we have to limit the number of people that we can work with each month. So if you schedule an appointment today, then we would be able to make sure that we can put you on our priority list and make sure that you don't need to wait for the next month. And also, we will throw in a special offer for you. We will add 3 hours of support calls after the project is complete to make sure that once you go and start implementing your designs or start going out and doing the fundraising or sales, we'll make sure that you're all set. If there is something that we there are hiccups along the road, we want to make sure that we can help you address those and make sure that your implementation is going as smooth as possible and you're set for the success. So, and also we offer our 100% money back guarantee, which is pretty straightforward. We guarantee that you'll see increased interest from your customers and investors if you follow all the steps of our process. And if you're not satisfied with the result, we'll give you your money back guarantee, no questions asked. So, and we've been getting a few questions along the way that we put together in the FAQ. So let's dive in. You might ask me, will this work if my startup is not in the fintech space? The answer is yes. The methodology that we follow in works for any SaaS product or service, web platform or mobile app, regardless what industry you're in. You might ask me, will this work if I don't have a product idea fully fleshed out? Great question. Yes, it will. In fact, we'll help you polish up your product idea during step 1. During this process, we will reach out to the prospective customers, analyze their pain points, identify what their goals and aspirations are, and based on that, we'll help you confirm your assumptions, or maybe sometimes we have to change the strategy because your original assumptions were not correct. So during this step, we'll finalize what problem we're solving and we'll make sure that your solution helps to solve your number 1 customer's problem. Another question that you may have is, why wouldn't you just create a prototype using a Bootstrap, Code, or other framework instead of doing creating UX UI design? Well, there are multiple reasons for that, and the broad answer is here is by creating UX UI design prototype, you kill 3 birds with 1 stone. So the first reason is that you will get an interactive prototype that you can use for sales, for pre-sales, for fundraising. You get that polished design look and feel that you can use to demonstrate to your customers what your product is about and get that great feedback from them. So you can also get a professional design that will be implemented during the development phase, and meaning that you don't need to build something or design something that is lower quality and then come back and redesign it again over and over again. And the third reason is that you wouldn't need to rebuild the MVP multiple times because while we're going through this process, we'll be able to verify that you have a product market fit, right? We'll collect that user feedback and make sure that you're ready, that you're set for the success moving forward, whether you're doing sales, fundraising, or you want to go ahead and build your digital product. So if you jump straight into the development phase and decide to code the prototype, then down the road you will have to redo it again and still invest time and money into creating an interactive design prototype. So instead of wasting the time and waiting for 6 to 12 months to redo it again, why not do it right from the beginning and get that same result much, much sooner? So the next question is, are there any long-term contracts? So after we complete the design of your interactive UX UI design prototype, we do offer support retainers that when we can help you to continue designing new features, make sure that we implement any feedback that you might be receiving from your customers or investors, and we can also help you consult on the design implementation during the development phase. Also, if you're looking for the reliable development team, we do have resources and staff in-house that do full stack development, so we can also help you implement those designs and develop the digital product. So, and if you have questions about how many rounds of revisions are included, we typically include 2 rounds of revisions, and based on our past experience, that number of revisions is usually enough to get the polished look and feel of the product, and working customer feedback and different design revision iterations to make sure that you're satisfied with the result in the end. And another question is there a limit on the number of screens that will be included in design? The answer is yes. So typically when we outline all the product features, we prioritize them and identify top 3 to 5 features that will make the most impact on your customers, the ones that actually you want to demonstrate to your customers or to the investors. So that typically equals to up to 30 unique pages of screens, and we typically do not include different screens with different states. Like, for example, if you have a drop down, open, closed, or you have a search box with text entered or not entered, right? So we don't count those as a unique screen. So those 30 unique pages usually cover the functionality that you're looking to design. And if you're asking what are the exact terms of guarantee, that's a great question. So we keep it super transparent and straightforward, and the guarantee is that if you follow the steps of our process, we guarantee that you'll see an increased interest from customers and investors once your interactive UX UI prototype is complete, and once you start going out there selling and looking to working on raising the funding. So, how can we guarantee the results? Well, when we work on the project, we utilize the industry-tested, battle-tested practices of product design, and as we follow those multiple steps during our process, we, as we go through those iterations, we ensure that we're not missing those important details from the very beginning of the process. So it helps us to avoid finding ourselves in a situation in the end of the process before we're about to hand off the design to you. It helps to avoid us finding out that we missed something during the process, right, where we have to go back to the square one. So this is the reason the process itself helps us to deliver guaranteed results over and over again. How much time would you need to dedicate to working with us? Well, typically you want to set aside about 3 to 4 hours for communication and 2 to 3 hours to do research or homework on your end each week. And we also can be flexible if we understand that founders have different schedules, right? You might have a full-time job that you focus in on during the day. So we can keep it as hands-off as you would like to, but typically we get the best results when we work closely with the founders and turn it into the highly collaborative process, do the brainstorming together, work closely together. But again, we can be flexible and make it as hands-off or hands-on as you prefer. And if you're asking, how do you know if we're legit? Well, we will be happy to connect you with our current or past customers, so you can talk to them directly and ask about their feedback, what it was like to work with us, what results that they were able to achieve. So we're always happy to keep it transparent and make sure that you have all your questions answered before you start working with us. And if you're asking, what if your company is not in the B2B SaaS space? Well, you don't need to be a B2B SaaS company to experience the results. At the end of the day, we help our customers produce fantastic UX UI design prototypes and get more eyeballs on them. And design prototype creation process is the same whether you're selling in the B2B space, B2C space, whether you're building SaaS product or service. So again, if you looking to raise the funding and validate your product idea, please do schedule a discovery call with us by following this calendar link, and we'll be happy to jump on the call and see if we would be a good fit for each other. If you have any questions, please let us know, and thank you for your time and attention today, and we'll see you in the next video.